Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We had a tremendous response, over 350 registrants today, so we're very excited. Thank you for your continued support of LVHA. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. We will be sending out a save the date for October 22nd. We're going to have a Halloween party, my favorite holiday of the year. This will include a costume contest for all ages and some other fun rooms for everyone to participate and network. So more information to come on that. We'll be sending out a save the date very soon. In addition, we have decided to move forward with holding our annual golf tournament. This is going to be on November 10 and at the Legacy Golf Course, and our committee is working hard to create fun, safe, and a safe social distance event. More information to come on that as well. One other housekeeping note, very important, for those of you who were members of LVHA in 2020, and you've since been furloughed or are no longer employed with your company due to COVID-19, your membership is still valid through December 31, 2020. If you need to update your contact information, please reach out to our Vice President of Membership, Ms. Jennifer Landez, or you can visit our website at www.lvha.org, www.mylvha.org, sorry. All right, so moving along to today's program. The Las Vegas Hospitality Association is pleased to partner with Mr. Pat Christenson, who is president of Las Vegas Events and members of the COVID-19 Committee, the VECC. The VECC was organized quietly and behind the scenes early in the pandemic and is comprised of more than 30 venue and resort leaders who formed the organization with the mission to return Las Vegas safely to live events and entertainment. Thank you everybody for coming today. Pat, I'll go ahead and let you take it from here.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You know, there's an old Chinese proverb, may we live in interesting times. And that could encapsulate the last 6-7 months easily. Appreciate the opportunity to address all of you. I think you will you'll appreciate the three speakers that we have today and their experience during these times. And speaking of their experience, let me introduce them. Russ Simons. Russ Simons is the Chief Listening Officer, and I'll let you, Russ, explain your official title at your company, Event Solutions. But Russ and I go way back, which tells you a whole lot about our age, more than anything. But he's been in the he's been in the venue industry his whole life. Opened many venues. The one he is working on right now is SoFi Stadium, which he just opened up, man. He'll talk a little bit about that. So you can't get a whole lot bigger than that. And I think that speaks volumes about, Russ, in my opinion, is the preeminent expert in the industry. And what's interesting about this COVID-19 is early on, we reached out to Russ and asked him to be a part of our VECC, and he didn't even hesitate. He was on board. With that said, he also chairs the task force, the IAVM, International Association of Venue Managers, which is, I think, Russ, over 5,000 members there. And they're working on behalf of all the venues. So Russ comes with some really, really good credentials, and we listen to him weekly. So I'm very confident of his expertise and understanding of what we're going through now, and kind of this vision for where we as a country and we as a city, from a venue and event perspective, how we not so much come out of it, but at its core, what's our transition. Steve Stallworth from South Point. Again, Steve and I go way back. Been with Thomas and Mack Center. He's managed professional sports franchises. Opened the Orleans Arena, which is in my opinion, at 7,000 seats. There's not a nicer venue in the country. But currently working at the and then opened the South Point Equestrian Center, Event Equestrian Center. Steve is going to talk a lot about the different kind of events he's been able to do during this pandemic. And I think he has an interesting perspective on that. So you've got another industry expert. And then we're rounding it out with live music. Chris Hammond is the senior talent buyer for AEG Presents. He's responsible for booking artists and comedians throughout AEGs, for all of their the venues here in Vegas. So he will have a very interesting perspective on the on Vegas and music. So before I get started with my questions, I just wanted to give you an update on the National Finals Rodeo. There's a lot of information and misinformation, as is common these days. So in summary, we were like a lot of other events. We were a casualty of COVID-19. It's interesting, when we started this process, we were thinking, shoot, if anybody's got a shot, it's the NFR. We were in December. We were a long ways away. Well, as the virus took its course, it did not cooperate. So we were faced with options, and what we didn't want to do, we knew we would not be able to produce this event in Las Vegas because we could not do it with fans. Michael Gaughan and Steve were very gracious with an offer at the South Point, which would have allowed us to do with no fans. But those of you, almost everybody on this call knows the impact of this is the fans coming to Las Vegas, which there wouldn't be any. So we gave the PRCA the option to move it. And one of the reasons we were so cooperative, actually two reasons. One, we did want to see the NFR. We did want to see it succeed again. But what that allowed them to do is produce prize money for their contestants. We paid out $10 million in prize money and $3 million to their stock contractors. Without that, there was no prize money, meaning these contestants that spend all year going to 100 different rodeos wouldn't have a payday at the end of the year. So fortunately, they found a venue in Texas. They found a stadium that I believe they're at 30%, and they're well on their way to being very successful. I'm pretty sure they're going to end up being able to pay out that $10 million. So there's your update with the NFR. We are assisting them, helping them with production. We help them with their season ticket sales. We are going to produce Cowboy Christmas in Fort Worth. It's a 300,000 square foot venue, a little scaled down, maybe 2/3 the size of Cowboy Christmas. And the opportunity for us there is really to demonstrate to Texas, to take our show on the road. And it will really be a marketing commercial, not just for Cowboy Christmas, but for Las Vegas and the NFR. So that is that's the scope of it. But in exchange, we got an extra year on our contract, so the NFR will be in Las Vegas through 2025 at least. So that hopefully that clears up any issues or questions you have at all. I introduced Russ to you. Again, Russ, congratulations on opening SoFi Stadium. You've had your thumb on the pulse of this virus, VIAVM, from the beginning. and even more intricately opening the SoFi Stadium. Take us through where we were, where we are, and any insight you might have for Las Vegas in our transitioning to reopen.
Well, thank you, Pat, and good morning or afternoon to everybody. Delighted to have an opportunity to spend some time with you. At the very beginning of this crisis, it was obvious to me in a self-serving way that if I wasn't in front of this thing, that I would always be playing catch up. In 2003, I led our industry response in the SARS pandemic. Fortunately, that was about 8,000 cases in North America and sort of petered out. SARS won. In 2011, I also led our industry response for in Ebola. And so because I've had that past experience, I knew that this was going to be highly complex. I and I don't think anybody else knew the depth of the impact that SARS-CoV-2 would have on our industry and on our world, basically. But I was convinced that if I wasn't in front of this thing, that I would never be able to get my hands around where we were going and be able to support the industry in a way that that's important to me. So I accepted the responsibility to lead the IAVM working group for COVID-19, and that has branched off into several subgroups. I also am a part of the Los Angeles facilities group, Atlanta, a high-level group with all five major professional sports leagues, and it was very, very nice of Pat and the other folks to ask me to participate in Las Vegas. The thing about Las Vegas for me is that in every other circumstance, it was a public assembly facility in a community. But Las Vegas is uniquely different, as you know, in more ways than I have time to actually articulate. But it was a combination of destination as well as the facilities, and in this case, casinos, hospitality, restaurants, and that type of thing. And I felt like that was going to be a really important and very wide view of all of the things that had to come together in order for a community to actually be able to manage the virus, the effects of the virus, and then begin a program towards restarting. And so I'm highly complimentary of the Las Vegas working group. Pat, you would know the number. I think it's 40 or 45 different groups of people, which again represent casinos and hospitalities and sports and entertainment facilities and that type of thing. And what I have found in my past experience is when you have a diversity of view, you're really going to be covering ground, whereas if it was just public assembly facilities, they tend to look at things just through their lens. And a single view through a lens of public assembly facilities and how to actually understand, recognize, address, and mitigate COVID-19 was not going to be sufficient. So I'm happy to contribute in Las Vegas, but the truth is I probably learn more in those conversations than I contribute. So it is those kinds of relationships that have helped me help others in the industry. And Pat pointed out my title as Chief Listening Officer, and the short story about how that came together is, as a public assembly facility manager, people came and sat on the other side of my desk, and they went into deep and passionate emotion about how I should do something that would be good for them, without ever really taking the sense or the time to say, understand us and what we were about, what our goals and objectives were, and what our needs were. And so I said to myself, if I was ever in the other side of that desk, I needed something to remind me to never be that person who put their own well-being over their customers. And so it's a tool I use every day to remind me that it's important to understand your customers before you think you can fix them. So that's the background for that. When you get to COVID-19 as it exists today, there's lots of really positive things happening in a lot of areas. The one thing that we continue to battle, that you battle in Las Vegas, I battle here in Los Angeles right now and around the country, is, I would say that the biggest thing we battle right now is the lack of a cohesive national strategy And therefore, we've segmented out into a wide variety of groups based on states with a wide variety of protocols. And if you look at the NFL as an example right now, there are currently 6 NFL teams that are allowing fans to attend events. And in fact, that goes to 7 this weekend. Lucas Oil Stadium is going to allow about 5,000 fans into there. The other cities are Miami, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Kansas City, Dallas, Texas, and Cleveland, Ohio. The nice part is, for the rest of us who currently are not hosting fans, is these other communities are, we get to learn from them. And so there's a great exchange of information in all levels, but in this case, we can look at what their policies are, what their procedures were, what people did, what they learned from that, because the hope is that all of us, whether we're destination-oriented, music and entertainment-oriented, or sports-oriented, we hope to get back to something where we can engage our industry to be viable again. You'll never hear from me, getting things back to normal. The normal we all enjoyed, like on up to, let's say, March 10th of last year, does not exist anymore. And the 7 months that we've been deeply embroiled in the various twists and turns of this virus have fundamentally changed us, even though we may not recognize it or know it. So from an industry standpoint, we're now focused on making sure that we're doing everything possible so that when the circumstances, both from your state and your local health department, come together and you can start to open your doors, we have a sense that if we opened our doors, people would stream back in. And we've seen evidence in the early NFL attendances and ticket sales where that's not the case. People have been, sort of being beat around the head and shoulders with COVID-19 and COVID-19 fear that has devolved in some cases to COVID-19 complacency. And it's not just about opening the doors. There is going to be a significant psychological leap for people to go back into a mass gathering environment. So we have to learn from each stage of this and the different ways that this manifests itself, so that we're doing all of the things, whether it's cleaning and hygiene and the way whether it's temperature checks or all of these different things are going to need to build a foundation of comfort for our guests. And that's the same for hotel occupancies. That's the same for and I don't know where Las Vegas is right now for indoor restaurants. In Los Angeles, we're just on the verge of going back to indoor. But that doesn't mean that those restaurants are going to be full. Out here, there are a lot of people who have really embraced al fresco dining, al fresco haircuts, if that's an actual thing. I think it's going to fundamentally change how we build in the future, rather than just sticking taxpayer stores in boxes, starting to look more like open air, lanai type of environments, particularly where you have an environment that can lend itself to that. So I think that there are going to be changes in the way people perceive what we're doing and their expectations for us that we can't articulate yet. So there's a lot longer road for us to go on here, and we have to continue to aggressively learn and apply those lessons and test new things. Test drive-in movies and drive-in concerts and smaller environments in order to build some foundational background to get back to where our large-scale facilities can contribute to our communities in the way we enjoyed just this past February.
Thank you, Russ. As we go through this weekly meeting with the VECC, at the beginning, we were, I wouldn't call us, I guess we were a little naive, all hopeful at the point. And the discussion was around when would reopen, and then what, we were all preparing guidelines for reopening. And I think the lesson I learned there is, in answer to your question, there was a couple of them that I got is, when will we reopen? I don't think anyone that says they know that, it really doesn't. And our hope is that in this period of time, when we find a vaccine, when we figure out how to treat it, that if this country's culture, and again, we in Las Vegas all depend on this entire country, if we all continue to follow these guidelines, to get through this. That's where we all feel that's the best route, the quickest route for us to get back to normal, to reopening. But so Russ, could you talk a little bit about what, as the virus, let's say as the vaccine starts to take effect, the treatments are out, people are safely, how do you see that transition back to venues and events, across the country and then in Las Vegas? What are kind of the protocols that you see getting back to full attendance?
So I think that if we've learned anything about this virus and our reaction to it, there's not any one box we can check and that we'll all be okay. And so in the grand scheme of things, I'm going to work up to virus. The first part is that we have made significant progress in terms of, from a health standpoint, how we treated the virus initially. And think about this macro to micro. A lot of people were frustrated at the very beginning where it was masks or no masks. And it's just important to know that as we started this, we didn't know very much. And I would say that from a health management standpoint, we were hopeful that this virus would react in a similar way as COVID-1 or other similar COVID types of virus, of which there are thousands, and that maybe some of those same protocols would help to mitigate the circumstances for this virus. It wasn't the case. This thing hasn't behaved like anything else we've ever seen before. And the reason why it's called a novel coronavirus is because we've never seen this virus before, which means 100% of the human race does not have any natural immunity. So the way we treated the virus in the hospitals and the different drugs that we have and the therapies that we had, there was a reason why we were having such a great loss of life on a percentage basis early on. We simply didn't know what we were doing. We were trying everything we could possibly do. So if we start at the beginning, we've made significant progress now in those therapies. We've made some significant progress in terms of the way we can treat people. We've significantly lowered hospitalizations. We've significantly lowered intensive care. And in intensive care, we've significantly lowered the mortality rate because of these therapies and techniques. I mean, that's the first piece of this that starts to create the foundation of comfort. We have also, I think, finally educated the vast majority of people that we control our own destiny with regard to the proper PPE, personal protection equipment, masks, gloves, hand washing. Of all of the things that have gone on in the last 7 months, there is no single product that is more effective for you than washing your hands with warm soap and water. So that's one thing we got right at the very beginning. Now, we do have a significant number of additional products and techniques like UVC lighting and a wide variety of things of understanding how airflow, how important airflow is. And so all of these things, again, that we start to tick off and say, now we understand these things better and we can deploy them and use them to better prepare our physical structure and how to manage people in those structures. That's all actually going along, and we're improving that every day. That's really positive. It doesn't actually get a lot of talk, but it's contributing to the success we're having in these areas. And we move those things all the way towards a vaccine. So I choose to be optimistic about a vaccine, but as the other gentlemen on this call know, as we've been on these calls for months now, I'm also a rational realist. So essentially, we've never been able to formulate a vaccine in the timeline that it's been suggested that this one has a chance to be created in. There are some things, though, that we've never had before. We were able to sequence the genome of this virus in 1 day. So something that would have in the past taken months or years, we actually had right off the bat. In addition to that, there have never been more people working on one thing simultaneously in the history of the world. So whether they're the pre-therapies or the hospitalization therapies or the viral and vaccine therapies, never before have there been more people solely focused on something in the history of our country, in the history of our world. So those are all positives that tell me that, yes, we think we can probably sort of break the mold of the traditional vaccine progress. Now, whether that vaccine is ready in November or January 1st or whenever, there are also just some, again, rational things we have to consider. Initial vaccine testing, successful vaccines, the initial doses are going to go where they belong. They're going to go to healthcare, first responders, and populations that have comorbidity results with regard to the catching the virus. And then eventually they will be distributed throughout the rest of the country. So we have 332 approximately million people in the US. It's going to take time under any circumstances in order to get that vaccine, prove it's safe, and then actually distribute it amongst our 332 million people. So that's where we have to just take a breath and start to make sure that we don't get overly enthusiastic, and again, we take that rational view of the timeline and how this goes forward. These things will resolve themselves. I mean, and it doesn't matter who you talk to. It's okay for the people, in my opinion, who are optimistic. Some people are more conservative. It will be what it will be within that timeline. But the vaccine alone isn't it. The vaccine, along with the therapies, along with the other things that are going to help to treat this, are what's going to create confidence in people to be willing to go back into a mass gathering environment. And so it is all of those elements or components simultaneously, and not just any one that's going to instantaneously fix us and we're back to March 10th last year. So, I mean, again, that's my view of these things, and that rational realism is what keeps me being able to sleep at night, along with the fact that immensely talented people are working super hard to make sure that if we can not take a shortcut, but if we can advance these results to everybody's best interest, we're going to do that.
Thanks, Russ. I had a question about the process the state in Las Vegas is going to go through to reopen, more from a government perspective, more from a structural. This group is readying guidelines that we hope to share with the state and then the county on what are the most practical procedures to reopen. But unfortunately, the virus isn't at a point where you can reopen like some of the states have. It's a little different perspective here in Las Vegas. So there really is no answer on a timeline. It really is how the virus takes its course. And as it does, there will be, I'm confident with the group that we have, the VECC, that the reopening will be as seamless as it possibly can be and as safe.
So one of the things that's actually going to make a difference here, and this is on the hope side, is I feel really strongly that in the next 90 days, we're going to see more effective and accepted rapid testing. And rapid testing, the idea that the people, in fact, many of you may be aware that United Airlines announced today that they're going to use rapid testing on international flights out of San Francisco as their first beta test. This is a really positive thing going forward. And there are a number of technologies that are available today. Some have had expedited permission from the FDA. There are others that have expedited permission from the EU. I really think we're going to see some significant results on rapid testing. And so as we look at the development of these policies and procedures to prepare to reopening, looking at how you would deploy rapid testing. That rapid testing would be 15 minutes or less. And right now there are techniques being explored from instantaneous, a tab on your tongue that would turn color, to a saliva test that would take the 15 minutes. This is, in my opinion, the best and safest tool that we have to actually create that level of comfort for people being willing to go back into mass gathering environments. So at SoFi Stadium right now, we are not allowed to have fans. So we're in a non-spectator event. We've had 2 events under that. But we are working tirelessly now on a partial fan, as we hope that the numbers, and it's not just one number, it's a variety of categories that would take us from, in California, what's called purple to red. But we're also parallel running, how would we manage rapid testing to be able to get 30 to 40,000 fans in? Our partial fan capacity would probably be around 18,000. all suites, and then using the entire building itself to be able to properly social distance and move people through the building. But with rapid testing, we could easily move quickly to 30 to 40,000 people in the building, and having the quiet confidence to know that everybody else around you has been tested and is not going to contribute to continuing the growth of the virus. This is really exciting stuff that should give us a lot of hope, because rapid testing, like the airlines, like sports and entertainment facilities, could actually get to the point every hotel guest, everybody in a casino, everybody in your restaurant. So you could be outside in an outdoor environment, having a cocktail, properly socially distanced while you're waiting for your testing. Your testing is good, and now you go in right to your indoor environment. This is the most hope that I have been able to legitimately express in the last 7 months.
Thanks, Russ. Steve, you have you've done more events at the South Point in the Equestrian Center during this time than anyone. You talk a little bit about those events, some of the guidelines, precautions that you took, and how you see your equestrian events, different events that you do in that venue moving forward.
Yeah. Well, Pat, just to give all the viewers here a little background on the South Point, we are primarily an equestrian center. So 80% of our events each year are equestrian related, which means that they are mostly participatory based, not spectator driven. So we don't have a lot of consumer events. The consumer events that typically take place in all of our public venues sell a ticket, require mass gatherings. That's the business model. We've been fortunate that most of our events don't require that. The ones that have required that, we have canceled, we have postponed and rescheduled. But we were fortunate in June, we got a phone call from the PBR, the Pro Bull Riders Association. They were putting together a bubble quarantine event at the Lazy E Arena in Oklahoma City. They wanted to know of our interest here in Las Vegas. And the great thing that was happening in Las Vegas at the time is that UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, was going down the road of creating this bubble to have these events. Endeavor is the company that owns the UFC and the PBR. So we were able to host 12 events over 30 days during June in a bubble right here at the South Point, which was great for the brand of Las Vegas. It was great for, they were broadcast on CBS. And that sort of really educated us all on what it would take to keep events going. Like a lot of people on this call, we are governed by the Nevada Gaming Control Board. We tried to present plans to Gaming Control Board to allow us to have events. All of them turned down. A lot of people in our equestrian industry and legislators got together, wrote real comprehensive guidelines and protocols on how we could move together with participatory equestrian events with no fans and no outside public, and that we could do them safely. Gaming Control Board felt confident. They kicked all of our approval process down to the LEAP panel. Some of you may be familiar with that here in Clark County. Local Empowerment Improvement Panel. It consists of representatives from the state, the Department of Business and Industry, OSHA, Clark County Commission. A lot of different groups are represented on that panel. Once our events got presented to this panel, they understood. They got it. Reno Livestock Center was doing events. Other equestrian facilities were doing events. And so at the end of August, we were able to present our very first equestrian event here at the South Point without testing, with participants. So no outside public, no outside fans. Only those folks that are participants are allowed to be in the venue during this time. Those participants, though, can be coaches, trainers, grooms, employees. There are a lot of people. Each horse, when they show, brings about 3 people to any venue when they show. So, Pat, we've been real fortunate. We've had 4 week-long events so far, like I said, at the end of August. I'm presenting again this week for an event that will take place towards the end of October. Right now, the LEAP panel is only accepting plans 3 weeks out, no later than 3 weeks. It's been pretty publicized what happened with the Las Vegas Motor Speedway here in town. You know, it was unfortunate that that had to go so long. You know, we've always maintained to this group that a quick no is a lot better than a slow yes in this case when you only have 3 weeks for these events. So we're hopeful and confident, I guess. I don't want to be overconfident, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to continue that through the fall with our equestrian events with no fans. You'll also, Pat, I mean, another major event in our city today will make an announcement that they are also moving to Texas, which is very unfortunate. It'll put a big gap in our schedule as well. Not at liberty to say who that is right now, but we'll all hear that news here in the next couple hours. But it's just, you know, it's unfortunate, but to Russ's point too, you know, are people comfortable? Our horse shows are probably down about 10%. And they're down with folks that just don't feel comfortable traveling. They don't feel comfortable getting out and going to these events. I will tell you this, the key though, also to Russ's point is all of our participants are coming from somewhere. They're coming from Texas, Oklahoma, Idaho, Montana. All of the rules are so different. And being the mask police is the new term for all of my employees, because it's a constant battle to try to get people to keep their masks on. And but we've done a good job of it. We've spent 5 times the amount of money on staffing and security and all of those kinds of things. But it was important to us to get people back in the building, to keep our employees working, to try to maintain some semblance of normalcy. So that's our story.
So, Steve, you produce the NFR experience is just the NFR at Thomas Mack is just a piece of it. There is, as everyone knows, Cowboy Christmas, there's concerts, there's viewing parties. You have a big piece of it, and it's one of the pieces of it that is happening. Could you talk a little bit about the World Series of Team Roping and how you guys are moving forward with that?
Well, Pat, to say it's happening is a little premature. Again, this LEAP panel is only allowing us 3 weeks to present the plan. We're certainly planning for it. And then, by the way, for those viewers out there and listeners, there's no form that you fill out. There's no guideline. There's no protocol. There's some very loosely based information out there that we should follow, but we are literally writing a detailed plan for each and every event, each single event that we present to this panel. So it does take a lot of thought. It takes a lot of commitment from your promoter. And again, like I said, all of our promoters are coming from out of town. They don't get it. They don't know what's happening in Las Vegas. They don't understand. So that communication before they get here is so critical. That communication to participants is so critical before they get here. Hey, if you don't plan on wearing a mask when you get here, please don't come. We will cancel your reservation. We'll cancel your entry. It's so important to be in front of that and not wait till people get to Las Vegas.
Thanks, Steve. Chris, I think personally, the thing I miss most in this pandemic is music. Dang it. And yet when you look at the live music industry, it isn't like professional sports. There's no fallback. There's no TV contracts. The live music industry is all dependent on touring. So if there is an event or event category that got hurt the worst, it is live music and live events, even theater without without the TV. So how is the live music industry coping? Especially here in Las Vegas, and how do you see moving forward the live music industry moving forward?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. Obviously live music and live entertainment for that matter is key to key to making this city run and drawing more tourists into it. One of the things when this first happened was we had always said, listen, unlike us, like you said, TV revenue and things like that, we need spectators. We need, and even Steve's venues, it doesn't rely as much on spectators. We need those spectators. So when with this first happened, we didn't know when we were going to get back. We didn't know it would take this long, frankly. And so we were of the thought that, hey, we're not going to do anything until we get back to full capacity. That's now for obvious reasons has changed a little bit. However, in our business, it's hard to make money if you don't have full capacity based on what we pay the artists, based on the way the deal's structured. Now we can work on restructuring those deals, but in the meantime, we've started to look at some limited capacity things and keep pushing and pushing and pushing to the powers that be to show that we can do things safely and responsibly. And I think what sets Vegas apart from anything, this town apart from anything, is that we do exude professionalism, and that's something from a worldwide standpoint, from a national standpoint, that we need to make sure people are safe when they come here. And that's something, if they make sure they're safe when they come to a show of ours and buy a ticket. But essentially we are pushing to see if we can start in limited capacity. And then for next year, later this year and early next year, since nobody really knows when we can get back to full capacity, we're just placing holds and getting the calendar ready so we can jump right into it when that happens, and get people on board and get things booked and start selling tickets. All our venues that we work with, that we book and or manage, are in casinos, and the casinos, are top notch. And I think that's something that we need to get that messaging out a little more from a national standpoint, that, we do. We're the best. We're the entertainment capital of the world, and this city relies on entertainment. What's interesting is how everything in this ecosystem is really connected, is that as I'm planning next year or later this year, typically Wednesday nights are a really big night for us, especially music wise. We bring in residencies or touring artists or anything, and Wednesday night's a pretty big night for us. But is it going to be in the first or second quarter next year? We don't know, because the reason it is because of conventions and because of visitors in town, those midweek conventions, and we rely on those. And so my booking decisions and my holds are based on, all right, are we going to have a Wednesday, Friday, Saturday show, or are we going to do, no shows during the week? Because what's the convention calendar look like? Are we allowed to have 200 people? Or are we allowed to have 50 people? So it's a constant juggling act that we're trying to remain nimble and flexible. And when we can, just push the button and go.
You look around the country at live music, and the marketing and the producing live music elsewhere is a little different than Las Vegas. What does Vegas need to do to get live music up? How can Vegas assist the live music industry and really the event industry?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, a lot of it, everything relies, we're different than any other town. We don't have a built-in audience per se. So we rely on all of these visitors to come in. So bottom line is we have to attract more visitors to get it back up, more conventions, whether those are limited capacity conventions, at least that's people there, and we can make our booking decisions based on that. But I think, we're, like I said before, we as a city are the entertainment capital of the world, and we exude professionalism. And, for the last 20 years, we are first class, culinary, service, hospitality. I mean, that's something that we really need to show that we're taking this seriously. And when you come to Las Vegas, you're gonna be treated safely and responsibly in everything we do. And that's if you're on the casino floor, like Steve said. If you're the mask police, if you don't want to wear a mask, don't come. If that's the enforcement protocol, then we're going to do it. But we need to do everything to make everybody feel comfortable that when they come and party in Las Vegas, they're going to be safe. I think that's the key to really getting this city back on track. And that'll, again, that snowballs into, more visitation rates, more conventions, more visitors coming in. There's a limited amount of visitors coming in where we can, all of us, put our shows out there. And there's only so many people that can buy tickets. And if we don't have enough people in town, it's not worth it.
You know, so of getting questions, a lot of questions about how does this translate to meetings? How is this similar or different? And quite frankly, when it gets down to the guidelines, we're pretty similar. So as you see the guidelines return overall, I think from a meeting perspective, you know, once you go to, let's say, a 50% capacity in venues, once you're allowed to do a 50% capacity, I think in meetings, you're going to have a different guideline, but it's going to be the same principle. So I think the two are pretty congruent, the event industry and the meetings and convention space. So, you know, I'm going to let this open it up to questions. I'll get started with some of the questions that I've got in advance. You know, timeline recovery, again, like we said, it really is how the country deals with the virus. Chris, I'll give you this one. How are the bookings looking for 2021?
So internally and within our industry, we think that we'll be back at full capacity earliest, maybe end of Q2. And that's full capacity, you know, maybe limited capacity, and that's end of Q2, early Q3 of next year. I hope that's not the case, but it seems to be a bit of a consensus in our industry. Now, with that said, I'm planning to have some shows, and right now I'm just really planning on weekend shows. You know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday maybe, or holiday shows, and not those. If I bring in Lionel Richie, you know, he comes in, he plays a Wednesday night show that usually sells just as good, if not better, than the Saturday night show, because of the visitors that are coming into town midweek on a business through conventions. So what we're doing is got the calendar set, ready for those weekend warrior type of opportunities in Q1, Q2 of next year. Maybe they've limited capacity, maybe they're full capacity, but truthfully, we don't think we'll be back to full capacity till the end of Q2. Start of Q3.
So, Russ, the question is, how will the effects of COVID-19 linger in the next 3 to 5 years? How do you think this will change the way we produce events, in Vegas and around the country?
I think there's a certain part of the population, mostly our older population, that aren't going to travel again. They're not going to go to live events again. There's, unfortunately, there's a lot of disposable income in that group, and I don't know how deep that'll go age-wise. I don't think that there will be sort of any change to people under 30. I think they feel like they're invincible already, and they will continue to be invincible. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I know it's not going to be what it was, and I can't articulate that very well, and I apologize for it. But I think we're learning that optimistic assumptions are dangerous, and that whether we think we've done enough, or we think, like I said, I think as an industry we kind of felt like if we found a way to throw the doors open, people would rush back in. And I think we're seeing some sobering results on some of the things, both and particularly in sport right now. So it's a great question. I wish I had a better answer for you.
One of the reasons I'm optimistic about Las Vegas is more about what we had going for us going into this. If you look at our venues and the momentum that we had going, not just in events, but in meetings and conventions, you have the $1.5 billion the convention center had spent, and all of the billions of dollars have been spent in this country to upgrade the convention facilities. You have a stadium. There's a lot of pent-up demand from fans for stadium events. Probably 5 right now. If you opened up next year, Chris, you'd probably have 5 events in that stadium. So you have that. You've got the Sphere. That is going to come online. So if there's one reason I'm a little optimistic, it is because Vegas has prepared. The venues are built. There are brand new experiences here that we can add to that we weren't able to take advantage of before. One of the questions, and I think, Chris, maybe you can handle this, is why are music venues in other parts of the country different than Las Vegas venues?
They aren't. And, you know, there aren't any venues doing full capacity shows in the country, and not many in the world, ironically. In Wuhan, there are a couple full capacity events, but there are no venues in North America right now that are doing full capacity events. You know, even as Russ was talking about in Dallas, and you know, they're either at 50% capacity is about the max that some of them are doing events at right now. So we are no different. We just have not taken those baby steps yet to start to open up at a limited capacity. You know, we haven't defined, there's some definitions that create some confusion of what ambient music is versus, you know, and what's the difference. And I seem, you know, we could argue for hours about, you know, common sense behind those and what that means, whether it's, you know, what difference that makes, you know, as long as you're operating safely and responsibly and by your protocols. I mean, I'm of the opinion that we need to take safe, responsible, qualitative and quantitative risks to start to get this back, because it's different than any other city where the venues are the same, but our city is different because our city relies on entertainment more than any other city in the world. And that's from the tax base, that's from visitation rates, that's from, you know, everything. I think 69,000, you know, there might be 69,000 people here in Vegas in the entertainment industry are affected by this. And that's not counting underemployed people and other things that are just waiting for paychecks and to get some money and to get this going again. And I realize, you know, there's a whole different argument there. But I think there's a way to take some baby steps. I'm not advocating full capacity, but certainly advocating, all right, let's see if we can do 25% capacity, you know, but let's make sure we do it correctly, safely, and let's make sure we punish those and enforce those that aren't doing it safely. And then, you know, if you lose your liquor license for a year, you know, you're going to make sure you follow the damn rules. You know, that's something that I think we can do, that I hope we're moving. I've seen some signs that we're taking a few baby steps towards that in the last week or so. And I hope that I'm correct, that we can just start to move forward. And that starts with conventions too, you know, maybe raising that, you know, to 250 people from 50, but make sure they're spaced properly and make sure all the protocols are safe. Again, I'm not advocating open the doors and let's blow it out. One other thing though, and to respectfully to Russ's point, and I hope I'm right and I hope he's wrong. I think it's going to be like the Roaring 20s when we get back to it. I think there will be, and there is a mass demand to just do something. I know I'm going crazy, but
I'll tell you, I support you. I hope you're right.
I know you hope I'm right. Right.
I really do agree with you that some of these people on the chat are basically saying, hey, so what can we do? I actually think for Las Vegas, you know, Las Vegas leads the entertainment industry in a lot of ways. And you have the resources and the sort of the collective collaboration amongst your groups, whether it's conventions or casinos or sports entertainment facilities, that kind of thing. So you actually have the opportunity to take those steps and actually start to advance the concept of, hey, we're here, we do it better already, we're doing it right. Just, you know, there is a modicum of risk with that. And the risk is if something out of your control actually negatively impacts taking those steps forward. So I'm a strong advocate for taking those smaller steps, building from, you know, 50 to 250 to 1,000 to 5,000. And I think if anybody could probably do it in a rational and a collaborative way, and maybe keep somebody from getting off the reservation in a way that would hurt the community at large, I think you could do that. I think Vegas is a place where you could probably do that. So that's where the work and the collaboration on your committee, I think, can really come into play. Because you don't want to wait for somebody else around the country to decide what's best for you. You've never done that before anyway. It's not in your culture. But just know that there is risk associated with that can set you back.
You know, I'll answer one more question, and then Linda, I think we need to wrap it up. One of the questions was, is there a best practice guideline guidelines being formulated. And the answer to that is this group, from an event and venue perspective, started that 6-7 months ago. Literally, I think in the second or third month, we had drafted guidelines that we kind of all looked at as minimum guidelines. But again, those are, and I think we'll be prepared to work with the state and the county to put those together and then promote them heavily for Las Vegas. But yes, there are guidelines being formulated. But again, I really appreciate the panelists. But Linda, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to, there was a comment made on the chat box. I want to recognize Miss Ashley Lowe from Caesars Entertainment and her efforts. She has obtained over 5,000 persons to sign a petition for Save Group Business for Las Vegas. So Ashley, you're a hero. We encourage everybody to join these efforts and get our governor to put 50% capacities in our ballrooms. And yes, Las Vegas can do it safely. Absolutely, we can do it safely. Wrapping one more thing, I had a 50-50 chance on getting this right. Our golf tournament is going to be at the Revere Golf Course on November 10th. The Revere Golf Course. Okay. Thank you. Well, a shout out to Michael Mack. If you're on the program, thank you for organizing these wonderful panelists. We appreciate your support. Pat, thank you for being our moderator today. Chris, Steve, Russ, valuable information. We appreciate it. We all want to keep hearing good, inspirational, positive, optimistic opinions and views. We know it's going to be a little bit longer of a road. So thank you very much for participating today. That would conclude our program. Everybody, we're all in this together. Vegas strong, and please wear a mask, and we'll see you in October for our Halloween party.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.